Hi, welcome to the latest edition of First Date Copites podcast. This is a podcast for Liverpool fans in Delaware and the friends of all those Liverpool fans in Delaware, including our guests today, who are virtually members actually of the podcast now. Got Daz from Baltimore and Haitham from Chicago. Welcome, guys, and special appreciation for joining us on Mother's Day. Bit of a last-minute scramble. As fathers everywhere dropped out, and including Sean, who was being a model father today, celebrating Mother's Day with his wife and his kids. Well done, Sean. I'm sure it's killing him not to join in and offer an opinion or two to us all. We are recording this on Sunday, May 9th, and it's Mother's Day here in the United States. And we are going to talk about a couple of things this week. We're going to look at Liverpool finally played after all this time yesterday against Southampton, a comfortable 2-0 win against almost relegation threatened team. We'll chat about that. And then we'll look forward a little bit. We'll look forward maybe towards the next 4 games, which could decide what happens in terms of our European future. And then maybe look a little bit further about what we're hoping for in 2021 and how we think the Europa League might shape up. Or maybe the Champions League. Okay, all right. Let's get started. Let's hone in on yesterday. 2-0 goals from Mane and Thiago, who has been getting a lot of grief apparently. I didn't realize on Twitter, and some people were embarrassed at the grief they were giving him yesterday. So I'm going to start with Haitham wearing his kind of super candy shirt from, I think it's a Krobler era shirt.
Yep.
Good looking shirt. Gonna look at you. So yesterday, your impressions. What do you take away from that?
Yesterday, I tried to meditate before the match, just like Daz asked me. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I wanted to watch the match, and I believe after the last couple of matches before the one from yesterday, I kind of gave up hope basically on qualifying for the Champions League. And I think I mentioned it to you guys on the chat that basically I'm at a point where I hope that they don't qualify for European football at all. Just hear me out. I'm not mad. I want them to be able to just deflate for the next season and shake off whatever this past crazy year has bestowed on everyone, from players, coaches, the gaffer, all of them. So I went into the match with that mindset. Like if they lose, it's okay. If they, get a draw, it's just the same. And then the match started, and I think Southampton was kind of pressing for the first 15 minutes, and we could not get the ball out of our half. But then they started playing, and Mane missed, a shot, and I was like, hey, deja vu, basically. And then they scored, which was great. I screamed out of joy, not frustration. And again, it felt like it was the same thing that had happened the 2 matches before. Like we were going to try to score again and all of that stuff. It's not going to happen, and then Southampton is going to press us towards the end of the match and score on us. And obviously seeing that Kabak was not playing in the beginning, it just made me less certain about getting a win, basically. So I was like, after seeing the lineup in the beginning, I thought it was going to be a draw. And then Thiago scored. So just to cap it off, the couple of things that I noticed. I enjoyed watching the 2 center backs. So I thought Reece Williams. There was a big difference to his performance from the previous times when he started and playing. and played. It just felt like he was smarter yesterday with his positioning. Even when he didn't have to touch the ball, just the way he blocked, the opponent players and things of that nature. I thought he did a couple of things that were pretty smart.
Yeah.
And then Nate, it was great watching Nate. Phillips as usual. I love his whatever you want to call it, just oomph. Like he's after it. He's after the ball. And then it was fantastic to watch Mane being close to. I mean, he wasn't his old self, but just being close to it. Being a nuisance. Worrying opponents, and then scoring. That was fabulous. So yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. Yeah, there were a few times when it got a little shaky, and Southampton almost kind of scored, and Ali of course saved our behinds a couple of times. But I enjoyed it. I have nothing negative to say about it.
It is a bit weird, right? Because arguably it was the worst performance in a while. I think they definitely played better against Newcastle, for example. But on the other hand, Allison's decided, I'm going to show you why I'm the best goalie in the world again. Wasn't there for a while, and I think I'm right in saying Phillips has not played on a team that's conceded a goal in like the last 4 or 5 he's played in. I think that was the 5th game in a row he's played in where we didn't concede a goal. Correlation is not a causal relationship, but that's pretty big.
Yeah, I think the biggest next thing for him is to have to switch from a defensive mindset to an offensive one when during corners and things like that, because he attacks he attacks our offensive corners like he's actually needing to clear the ball. I'm just like, what are you doing?
I'm going to ask Daz to kind of sum up where his perspective was. But to be fair, he got his head on two crosses, right?
Yeah.
There's a start. That hasn't been happening. Yeah. Maybe next time he can direct it better, but
There was a short corner in the second half, wasn't it? Where they I forget who winged it in, and he was the only one that was near it, and he put it out almost for a throw in.
Right.
It's like, well, this is what I do. You can't ask me to switch my spots, and it was in the space of 20 minutes.
Probably a couple of things going on, right? I think it was from Trent. It probably was faster and lower than from most people, but yes. Okay.
All right, so if we're doing T-shirts, I've got this one on.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Because I haven't given up. I can't help myself. I keep looking at the bloody, like obsessively looking at the league table, like somehow someone's fallen off somewhere, or Leicester's decided that they've had it with this league and they're picking up shop and going to Thailand. But
I don't. Sorry to interrupt, but I was hoping you were going to be the one saying, like, I've given up on the season. I don't need to look at that because that's what I'm doing too.
Bloody well had, and my face melts off every time I look at it. I'm like, Neil Atkinson says, "Don't look at the league. Don't look at the league." I'm like, I can't help myself. It's like compulsively picking up my phone. It's like, I'm sure something's changed. I know something's changed. But I agree with Haitham. Well, and I disagree with what you said. Well, I agree with you saying it was about being a comfortable game. It was about as comfortable as being buggered with a rusty fish fork.
There's an image that we're not going to lose in a while.
And as well, you shouldn't, because while it was happening, I was like, it was just kind of like a rusty fish fork. But anyway, I was kind of with the same boat as Haitham. I was like, it's just gonna be nice to see them play. It's been 2 weeks, and I think one of the problems with watching them Monday or watching them Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, or Sunday, Thursday, and when things aren't going your way, it just feels like a repeated kick in the bollocks. And it was just nice to see them play. And I think I'd said something to you on the chat, is we just had the look of a team in portions that hadn't played in a while. We just looked a bit rusty, and to Haitham's point, balls weren't making it where they needed to go. There was a couple of times I was just like, you guys know each other? It's like playing balls that were like massively under pressure, like just almost putting each other in a position where they were going to lose the ball. And there's a couple of times we did that, and they just marched right through the midfield at us. One thing, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but our press was, I hadn't seen the type of press that we were using yesterday probably in a while, maybe ever, because it always seemed like Thiago was the one that was kind of triggering the press. But the way that he was doing it felt a little haphazard sometimes, and they were just two passes, and they were coming right down the middle of the park at us.
Yeah,
I'm not. It had to have been by design because we did it quite a few times. Yeah. So I'd be interested to be the fly on the wall to know what that decision-making process was.
It was just, again, I did notice something weird because there was a midfielder and it was often Thiago like leading the press. Mm-hmm. And there was definitely one point in the second half where he was pushing up and the guy played the ball in behind him and he was pointing at somebody as if they had not like got the person who the ball went to like they should have done.
Well, one of the commentators, the color commentator, mentioned about how Klopp was losing his absolute rag on the sideline, and I think it was with Salah. And there was another one that was he charged like 2/3 of the width of the pitch to close something down, and I was yelling to him, I was like, "There's two guys on the sideline. If they switch this quickly, they're away.
Yeah,
they're going to be running right at Trent and whoever's over there." And I think I said this as well. Our midfielders are putting out a lot of fires. As we're used to them doing it, it felt like we were under duress more than we probably needed to be, and I think a lot of that, at least in my less than perfectionist or even professional take on it, was perspective was that oftentimes we got caught in a press that it felt a little random or haphazard.
Yeah.
But having said that, we had some great passages of play. And I think that's been mentioned many times before by smarter people. It's not that this is anything new. It's just we were better at managing those portions when we weren't playing well. We didn't seem like we were as stretched. It didn't feel like we were as thin. It always felt like we still had a modicum of control, but it wasn't panic. And sometimes, and you saw it creep into the Leeds game towards the end, and definitely the Newcastle game. And I think we mentioned this before. You can see that it's in their heads, whereas 2 years ago would have been wave upon wave, like bring it, we'll just repel it, and we might even sneak a late one. And now it just feels like we've almost submitted to the fact that we will concede a late goal if with any type of sustained pressure. And just to Ali was immense yesterday until he almost wasn't, and he gave it directly to. Who was it he gave it to? Thank God it was Shea, right?
Shea Adams.
Yeah, Shea Adams. Thank God that he could do better that way, because he had a charcuterie, if you will, of options ahead of him, and he chose the olives. To really labor that analogy, but we actually got we got lucky on a couple of occasions with better finishing. We could have been 2 or 3 down. And that's not to say that we didn't have our chances as well. I think Mo again yesterday, there was a couple of times where he made the bad option. There was the one that short angle, tight angle shot that he took in the first half. And in fairness, like he's put those between goalies' legs before, he squeaked it through. But he had 2 guys, like it was Mane, and I think it was a Genie was right behind him, or someone right behind him too. Like there was 2 of them that was standing on top of the 6-yard box unmarked, and they could have knocked it in with their hats. And then there was the one where he had kind of a quasi breakaway, and he decided that he was going to try and spin him. By the time he got around to it, it was basically the non-existent crowd was there blocking his way.
Yeah.
So it was. I think that it was Ian Salmon said it was hard work watching some portions of it yesterday, but all in all, I think that we deserved the win.
Yeah.
And there's. And every time we say that you see green shoots, they've turned to rot the next time we play.
Well, this is the big issue, right? That we kind of face now. It's like we've got hope again. Other teams are stumbling. What did Thiago? He said, what did he say? The door is closed, but we have a small window. Kind of feel like it might be a mistake to be sucked back into this hope. But I do think there are a couple of things, even though the performance wasn't great at times, at the end of the game, and I said this to my daughter before we scored, and I was like, I'm going to regret saying this, but it felt like we weren't defending as deep as we had in those Newcastle and Leeds games. We were still trying to operate the press and keep the game in the middle of the field or in their half, and that's where the goal came from, the Thiago goal, from pressing and like suddenly finding it on our new midfield scoring talent's foot. Wonder when the last time we scored a goal was. Actually, that's probably an interesting thing. I am going to like move forward. So 4 games left. What's our mindset for these 4 games?
12 points.
Well, 12 points would be fantastic. Yeah,
That has to be the mindset.
Right. So what is that thing? It's like, what do we hope for? What do we expect?
You waft away the smoke of the cauldron.
Right. So we hope for 12 points. So what's the difference between what we hope for and what we might expect, Haitham?
0 points.
No. No, I think it's 3 points, Daz. So yes,
4 games.
hoping no difference. Hoping for 12 points, but realistically, I think it's going to be a 9. I feel like United is going to play their, I don't know, 3rd string. When is it? Tuesday?
It's Leicester, yeah.
Yeah, against Leicester.
Yeah.
And then the 1st string will play against us. I still think we can get something out of it, but that's one match that I'm trying to write off basically and not think about. And if we get a result there, it's going to be a positive. But I think Burnley is going to be tough too, just because it's Burnley. And who I know Crystal Palace is the last one.
West Brom.
Well, they're relegated now.
Yeah.
But Big Sam, he's got, I don't know, some kind of monkey on his back all the time. So, but yeah, I think if we get 9 out of the 12, which might jeopardize, our chances or whatever, but I think it would still be good. So that's my hope. 9 out of 12. If we get 12 out of 12, I'll buy Daz another. I've never given up shirt or something like that. Yeah.
I think so. I think if we get 12, I'm pretty sure we're going to be in Champions League. You've got the never give up shirt. So obviously you're hoping for 12 points or enough points. Maybe 10 would be enough. I don't know. Where are you on this, Daz?
Well, I think that our commentating brethren were very quick to point out that it doesn't seem to be the top of the table that we seem to struggle getting points from. It's towards the bottom. And lo and behold, 3 of the 4 games we play are at the bottom of said table. So I think I agree I think West Brom will actually be our biggest challenge, because I think that Burnley's on a beach already. And I definitely think that Crystal Palace is on a beach. Hodgson's not going to have these guys on a red meat diet waiting to tear a strip off of us, especially not the last game of the season. They've got nothing to play for. Whereas Fat Sam, Big Sam, Gravy Boat Sam, whoever it is, add your own moniker here, he's always wanting to tear a strip off of a team like us. Because remember, he still believes that he should be managing Real Madrid. So United is always United. So I don't know, man. I've got a sneaking suspicion that game might get cancelled again. Like unless that they show up with a police presence, because you can imagine that Mancunians, now that they know that they can sink their teeth in, might go for it again.
Yeah.
So
I do want to play them, because I know that's one of the most sought after fixtures on whenever the fixture list comes out. Everyone definitely circles that as one of the most important fixtures. And honestly, I wouldn't mind going to Old Trafford and getting a good result. There's so few and far between. And I watched a little bit of the game against Villa, and Villa had them on the ropes for a large portion of that first half. They looked really good. I think as long as we play tight, because Maguire and Lindelof have mistakes in them. If we make better decisions around the top of the 18-yard box, I think we'll beat them, or we'll get a result at least. But again, it's like you said, it comes down to it, and a lot of stuff you read on Twitter kind of echoes exactly what we're saying, is that they have no fear of Leicester, and they'd rather see Leicester get the points than us. And if they're going to show up with a worn out team, it might as well be against Leicester, not us. So he'll definitely. And the thing is, like, he has enough talent on his bench. And one thing I can say about them this year is that they've handled, if I'm going to say anything nice about United, is like they've handled adversity very well. Like, going down hasn't stopped them from securing all points, which is basically what we were really good at last year and the year before.
Yeah.
So I think that they're only about 3 or 4 players away from having a really good squad.
I see people posting that on Twitter. Anyway, okay. That's enough good things to say about United.
Exactly.
But I mean, I think the other thing that's probably in our favor is Leicester have got to be thinking, like, there's not many players different. It's like, oh, shit, we've screwed up before. We could do this again, right? I think that's probably, if anything, the biggest thing in our favor at this point.
I was thinking that Blue Rogers has been turned into a choke merchant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you kind of was with us too, I guess.
Yeah, I think another factor that might be really important in determining, how many points we get is when Hendo comes back. I think his presence, regardless of his form and all that stuff, is very important to the way we play. So if he comes back, I don't know, maybe the last 2 games, it might be actually a positive or an extra push.
Yeah. I think if we could have either Milner or Henderson as well against United, that will make a big difference.
One thing about Henderson, and people don't give him enough credit, they're calling him a crab because he passed from side to side. It's almost like that people think that he was doing that on his own, that wasn't by design, or that wasn't what he was asked to do. He does the simple stuff really well. And like, he can still knock a 60-yard ball over the top under a threepence. So he's, again, you said it's the simple stuff that I think that we've been missing, like, to keep us ticking over. And then he's like a little terrier behind everyone. That was one of the only great things about not having a crowd, and as you could hear Hendo.
Yeah.
And like, he never stopped. Like, the guy must be hoarse after every practice and every game, because he never stops barking.
Yeah. So we're at the sense I have is we have hope. We may even have expectation. This is good. This is good. So let's do a couple of things before we finish. Let's look ahead and look backwards, and let's start by looking ahead. So likelihood is we're probably in Europa League next year, right? I think given the results this weekend, and if we don't manage to catch Leicester, because I think they're the team to catch. What's your outlook for next season? What are your hopes in terms of who do we need to bring in? Who maybe do we need to sideline? What's your thoughts right now? And obviously, we'll have plenty of time over the summer to do a deeper dive on this. But just kind of where's your head right now? If you're not completely focused on the next 4 games, which I suspect, well, you may be, but I suspect we're not.
I'll go first. So one thing that I'd love to, 2 positions that I'd love to see, new legs, new players. So attacking midfielder and a number 9. If we get, and it doesn't have to be, world class players. I'm not talking about getting what's his name, Sancho or Holland or whatever, but just some solid players that can fill those 2 positions for me. I would be on cloud 9. And obviously just return to 100% for both the center backs that have been missing most of the season, and keeping Kabak. I think keeping Kabak would be a huge plus too. And then I'm not sure about Genie's replacement, because to be honest, and maybe it's just the fact that I don't get into the tactics and all that stuff as you guys do, but I just find it hard sometimes to understand what Genie does, because he does everything. He's like the jack of all trades. I mean, he was yeah, he played when was it, a couple of years ago, he played left back, I think, or something like that, before we got Andy.
I'm just saying, he nearly scored from a header yesterday, like at the top of the bar.
Yeah,
That would have been a wonderful goal, by the way. But anyway,
yeah. So yeah, I just figuring, those things out. I don't think it needs to be much. We're never ever gonna, compete with the likes of City and Man United, paying what they want to get players or whatever. I mean, Man United hasn't really been doing it, but the past few seasons they've been spending a lot of money on players, regardless of the outcome of those huge spends. I know it's been working for City. They have like two A teams basically, but yeah.
This season's kind of like the Russian in the movie Snatch. So no matter how many bullets we seem to put into it, it seems to bounce up and say, "Fuck you." So
I don't get the reference, but it's funny.
Have you never seen Snatch?
No.
Well, then maybe the kids will understand it.
Okay.
But it's basically this guy doesn't seem to die. You watch the movie, you'll get it. You're like, oh, that's what Daz was talking about. But I think moving forward, I think it depends what the teams around us are going to do. I think Chelsea, and we said this when Frank was the manager, is like all they need really is a world-class manager, and that team will be something to worry about. And they've proven that beyond the shadow of a doubt now with Tuchel. So
yeah, I
think next year they'll be one to watch. Like I said, United, I'm not sure what they're going to do with squad acquisitions, but if they get rid of Ole and pick up a couple of decent players, that they could be one to watch. I strangely don't think City is going to be as toothy as they were this year. It's one of those weird predictions. I don't think that they'll be as dominant as they were this year. Because if you think about it, at the beginning of the season, they had a bit of a malaise as well.
Yeah. And
it took those 2 weeks extra off that they got because of the COVID protocols, and they came back and they've been lights out since then. But you've seen teams have exposed where their weaknesses are. It's managing to get into those weaknesses. I honestly think next year, if we're in the Europa, we'll win it. I think we'll win a domestic league, and I think that we'll be challenging for the league, because the team remains somewhat intact. I think that if once we have the Mama and the Papa in the center back positions again, and we're going to need to pick up at least two. Joel Matip, we can't center backs. Joel Matip, we can't rely on anymore. And I'd say Joe Gomez, as good as he is, it's the same thing. It's just you have to be able to rely on a somewhat stable partnership. Like what happened to Virgil was he's been injured in the past, but not like this. So I'm not sure if we will try and replace Genie. I think we probably go after Basuma. I saw an interesting part in the Anfield rap was talking about this too. They talked to one of the fans, one of those super fans from Brighton, and they said he's not the finished article yet. You could probably use another season, and then he'd be able to move on. And they made the counterpoint. There's a Klopp usually looks for those type of people so that he can still ingrain his system and into somewhat of a fresh tablet. Yeah. I think Basuma would be I watch him religiously when he plays, and he's here, he's there, he's everywhere. And he's a smart player. He's a hard player. I think he'd be a good acquisition. And again, you have to consider that Hendo now is 30 this year, 31.
He's 30. Yep.
Yeah, and he's, as much as I love him, you are going to have to start looking for a quote unquote replacement. What he does, I don't think too many people in world football can do, or have done. And I'm a Hendo fan. I'm a Hendophile, and I think that I'll fight anyone that tells me otherwise.
Well, the thing he brings is leadership, right? It's not like you look at some teams and it's not easy to find where that leadership comes from.
Well, they've given Genie the armband, haven't they? And like he's a fantastic player. He just doesn't have the lead from the front stuff and from behind. It's always like Hendo's like leading the charge, but somehow he's behind everyone, pushing them along as well.
Yeah.
Where was I going with this? I think that, and we're gonna have to. I know that Klopp had come out and said that he doesn't think that Bobby's done, and I don't. Maybe he's not, but we're going to have to look at an option where we have someone that finishes, someone that has the capacity to put the ball in the back of the net from 6 or 7 yards out.
Yeah. So we'll just wrap up this round because one thing I was encouraged by yesterday was Jota and Mane actually seemed to play quite well together, which I don't think we've seen much of, certainly in recent weeks. So maybe that's a sign of where we're headed next season.
Have you seen how many times Jota puts himself in a position like right around the penalty spot, and his finishing leaves a little bit to be desired because he does all the hard work and he ends up quite frequently hitting it right at the goalkeeper when he could do what Thiago did and just play it into a corner. But it is heartening. It is heartening. I don't think that he wasn't top notch yesterday, but he was like he put himself in a couple of positions where he is like a striker where you're like, well, he didn't have a good game, but he scored 2 goals.
Yeah. I think for me, it was the potential that they demonstrated yesterday, which I thought was far greater than some of the other games. I'm going to quickly go around on a couple of different things. So we're going to change tack a little bit and go back in time because this is the time of year when we have lots of anniversaries. And there are 2 particular ones that struck me this last week. One, which will live long in the memory of all of us, which was it's been 2 years since we beat Barcelona 4-0 at Anfield on that kind of like never to be forgotten night. The other one that I think is very significant because I do think, and because I have a memory of this because I'm that old, when we beat Newcastle in the FA Cup final in 1974, playing some version of what the Dutch would have called total football, felt like a start of something. It was 3 years before we won the first European Cup, but it seems like strange that both of those things happened like at this point in the year. Well, it isn't strange because the end of the year and that's when all things matter. But a reflection on kind of some of those historical moments and feel free to talk all about Barcelona, but I do think that Newcastle final was so important. Haitham.
Yeah, so obviously I wasn't around for the 1974 FA Cup final. I might have caught it, but just like watching stuff on YouTube. The Barcelona match, the thing that I've enjoyed the most, other than the win and the performance and the come from behind, is actually watching Barcelona fans on YouTube cry about the match. After the fact, that was my one of my favorite moments. But yeah, I mean that's one of the matches that will just live in my memory for eternity. I say I'm never ever gonna die. I don't want to say for the rest of my life. But yeah, it was one of those. And the funny thing about it is I did not really watch the match live because I don't know, I had a meetings that afternoon and basically, just went with, oh, we'll never ever come back and beat Messi, Suarez, and all of that stuff. So I felt like a little shit, afterwards. And my friends, I can't remember who, kept texting me, and my phone was just blowing off. Like, are you watching this? And I'm like, no, I'm in a meeting. And then, obviously, I watched the match afterwards and continue to watch it till this day. Every time there's downtime, that's one of the the few things that I switch to, whether it's highlights or the full match.
Well, we can't forget Istanbul.
That's coming up, right?
Well, it's not. The thing is, like, apparently, like they're trying to reschedule or I think that Aston Villa.
Yeah,
Aston Villa
Villa
put in a bid to be. So a friend of mine's like, yeah, it'll be called Aston Bull.
There's actually a place in the center of Birmingham called the Bull Ring, which they could probably do something with. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, I think one thing that as many times as you think Liverpool will never be able to top themselves, by God, they managed to do it. Like I remember my wife was at a conference in Philadelphia and I was a ride for the game against Dortmund in the Europa League. Was that the quarterfinal, semifinal? The quarterfinal?
Might even been the round of 16, actually.
Whenever it was, and that was just the full range of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember running around the lobby in this la-di-da Philadelphia hotel, like screaming my absolute head off like a mental patient. And someone's like, "Oh my God, what just happened?" Is like, "Liverpool just won." And I like, "Oh, okay." And then just scurried off. Oh, it's one of them. But I get that was, for me, that was amazing because I was sitting watching it on my phone and it was coming in and out. And like, I lost like 2 minutes of the game in some portions and then came back and it's like, well, just the drama to it. It was, I loved that part of it. And I had a sneaking suspicion against Barcelona, and I can actually call my mate that told us, like, I have a sneaking suspicion that we might do something today. Because this is when we usually our best, is when everyone's written us off and we've got our backs against the wall and no one's given us a shot. No matter how many times that we've proven that we do have a shot, everyone always wants to write us off. And I was like, I got a sneaking suspicion about this. And just to see the look on all of those players' faces, Messi, Suarez specifically, because he was an absolute shithouse in the first round too, an absolute shithouse. Remember when he went over to Andy Robertson, he's like, in your face after they scored?
Yep.
And then Philippe Coutinho as well. As like, all of you can have this. And I got exactly the same feeling when the Anfield rep put something up on about like how they had like their little mini reaction thing. It's like, have that. You make me a bad person?
No, I feel like we should end the episode here. That's just the perfect moment. I want the Dortmund game's interesting because we were probably 25 miles apart on that day because I was watching it at Rooney's, and I do remember watching it with our friend Joshua Lindsay. That was quite a moment. I have one more round of things to talk about. I don't know if we're going to get to it though. We talked in the last couple of episodes about the future of football and protesting. And one thing I was delighted to see this week was the Gary Neville backlash, including from Klopp, who talked about people who are on TV needing to be more responsible. Enjoyed it very much. One last thought, one last takeaway from I guess we've gone from the European Super League now to, I don't know, wherever we are, fan protests, mainly at Man United and Arsenal for obvious reasons. Where do you think we've landed and what do you think will happen next? Big questions. Quick answer. Haitham.
I'm not sure what's going to happen next, to be honest. I think you guys kind of have experienced what has been going on with our own club, but yeah, no idea. Maybe, they're going to have fans, representatives, and I'm not sure what their duties will be, how they're going to be involved, but yeah, in my mind, that's going to be the end of it, basically, having some kind of representation, but I'm not sure what shape or form.
To borrow a phrase, not a goddamn thing is going to change. Because you can see it already. Like, no one is, like, United fans, I guess, if you want to put it this way, did strike while the iron was hot. But you can already see people slipping into this, well, it's the same as it's ever was malaise. What am I going to do about it? Oh, UEFA's made no overtures about them wanting to change anything other than charging those 9 of 12, 5% of their European income. They've done nothing and I think that we'd already said this, that they'll just keep their heads down for long enough for people to kind of give in and just like, oh, okay, that's fine. Sky Sports aren't going to drop their prices. They're not going to screw over clubs to make sure that they get their TV time in. It's nothing. nothing substantive is going to change. And that's because I think that if they were going to do it, they would have done it now. Yeah. It's nice to see clubs making overtures to have fans on board. But again, to Haitham's point, what are their responsibilities going to be? Like, is this just to say that we have representation? And like, what's it going to be like for those 2 or 3 fans that are on the board? They'll become persona non grata like that. You talk to Tony Barrett, right?
Yeah.
Super nice guy, like probably has everyone's best interest at heart. The first time that something goes wrong, people are just working his body because they expect him to be their voice. And their voice is whatever immediacy is in their face. I'd love to see it, but unless you get like something, that 50+1 model, which people will argue has the same problem, it's more performative than it is substantive. Unless you see something like that where fans actually are making some of the higher line decisions, I don't think anything really is going to change, because the powers that be will continue to be the powers that be. They'll just be smarter about the way that their powers will be, and just insidiously like slip their way deeper into our pockets and our lives in kind of harmful ways. Sorry, that was. But other than that, I think it's going to be great.
There's lots of things to take away from that. I mean, what I heard was the power of Gary Neville is waning. That's always awesome.
Salford did make it into the playoffs.
They did.
They didn't.
Oh,
Salford did not. They missed the playoffs.
That's a great note to end. Sorry, Gary. So, there's certainly a lot to look out for, right? In terms of what's going to happen. I mean, the first thought that struck me actually. We should end this soon, but that someone. Like, how are these people not going to sue UEFA over this 5% anyway? Because apparently, if you sue UEFA, you're going to end up with winning the case, right? That seems to be the method. Anyway, that was a huge pivot out to what's going to happen next. Any final thoughts, or should we leave it there?
Up the Reds.
One thing, up the Reds, up the fucking Reds. One thing we should say is, if you haven't heard last week's episode, Tim does this really interesting breakdown of the 50+1, which is fascinating. If you haven't, if you didn't listen to it, recommend our German football expert.
Sorry, Tim, about this weekend. If you're listening,
Yeah,
your team lost.
they're in the cup final. They're in the cup.
There's always next week against the same squad.
They're in the cup final. Leipzig are in the German, the Pokal, blah, 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 whatever it's called. So
against Dortmund.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll see about that. Good luck, Tim. Haitham, Daz, awesome to see you again. Thank you so much for joining this week's episode, especially, and make yourself available at short notice. Thank you.